The World Happiness Report 2025 has ranked Sierra Leone 146th out of 147 countries. This means Sierra Leone is one of the unhappiest nations in the world. The ranking suggests that Sierra Leoneans are also among the saddest people globally. A report which assesses 140 countries based on key indicators such as social support, income, health, freedom, generosity, and corruption levels places Sierra Leone at the bottom of the global rankings. This year, Sierra Leone replaced Afghanistan and Lebanon as the least happy nations, reflecting severe socio-economic struggles, governance challenges, and widespread poverty. To discuss this and the outcome of the Civic Day series by the Ministry of Information and Civic Education, which was held in Cambia District, we do have in the studio the Minister of Information and Civic Education, Minister Chairman. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Morning, thanks for having me.
So firstly, I'd like us to start off with the World Happiness Report, which has ranked Sierra Leone 146th. What does the government make of this?
Well, thank you very much. I want to say that I'm happy to talk about anything and everything, but I will say that for the record, none of your producers told me we're here to talk about happiness reports. It was not part of the invitation that was sent to me. And this idea of gotcha journalism is terrible for you, it's terrible for me. We will have a better conversation if you told me. I will talk to the right people, I will do all the research, and I will come here and we will do better for the people of this country. This notion that you call me to come talk about Cambia Civic Day, and while I'm here, you use something else as your headline, is a disservice to you, it's a disservice to the people. If you continue to do things like this, I am fine. I will come, I'm happy to talk, but you will discourage other government officials, even other leaders, to come to your show. Journalism should not be gutter. It should not be gotcha, not a trap. Okay? So I'm happy to answer the questions because I'm happy to answer all questions, but I think courtesy also demands that you let me know this will be the topic, especially if you're going to use it as headline in the way that you have just done.
So what does the government make of the report?
Happiness is defined, again, the index compares all countries around the world. I just came from Cambia. Our people are poor, but they are not sad. The notion that what you judge as happiness, the index that is used, if in certain societies they don't have food to eat, that's equal to unhappiness, sadness. I come from poor societies. I was born in Kanike. My parents are from Jimibabo and from Banth. Even when they don't have anything to eat, they will make a place for the stranger. They will prepare the last meal for the person that's to come. There's a sense of pride and national civic pride that we have. I think a report like this is useful for the kinds of conversations that you're having, the kind of, let's ask the government. And by the way, in your introduction, you said Sierra Leone has replaced Afghanistan. That's also not true. We have not replaced Afghanistan in the report. We're ranked among the countries that are considered unhappiest. And unhappiness, it's important for people at home to understand. It's not defined as your metaphysical, emotional state. It's defined, they use indices like, the economic situation, what you refer to as freedom. And if you take each and every one of those things, I like to say, we are, as a country, we're heading in the right direction. every time a report reminds us of how the economic situation is, about our poverty levels in our country, it's something that the government takes seriously. But it's not, again, in my mind, it's not, people don't judge, we just come from one of the poorest districts where people are really impoverished. But people are not looking for what people in Finland are looking for overnight. The people of Sierra Leone understand the context, they understand what they are, they want their lives to be better. They want to have access to school, which government has provided through the free quality school education program. They have challenges with the school bus that they have. They want to make sure they have a fire force that's functional. They want good roads so that they can get their things happening. They don't have all of those things. For me, I'd rather focus my attention on those things. How are we solving the basic problems of the citizens of the country? But to say, oh, let's focus on between Sierra Leone and Norway and Finland, who is happier. I've been to many of these countries. I find the Sierra Leonean spirit much happier than these things. So I don't find it a particularly helpful index. What it draws attention to is the reality that we live in. I think most people, everybody in Sierra Leone knows that we live in tough times. The economy is not where we want it to be. We had an inflation rate just last year of over 55%. We're now closer to 10%. So we're headed in the right direction. But, if it's a conversation about whether things are hard in Sierra Leone, these people of Sierra Leone know that what they want to hear is what we're doing and what we're all doing together to solve these problems. And that's something we continue to work on.
The key indicators include social support, income, health, freedom, generosity, corruption levels, among others. So how would you rate our current status?
You take generosity, for example. You suggest that the people of Sierra Leone are not generous. This is one of the most generous countries in the face of the earth. That's why I say again, I don't know how these studies are done. I've traveled to over 80 countries in the world. I have not met many societies where people are as generous as the Sierra Leonean spirit. I just said, you go to the poorest home in my village, they want to welcome the stranger. They will give you their last bed in their house. You take the issue of corruption. Since President Bio came to power, every independent assessment of our performance on corruption has said we're headed in the right direction. The Anti-Corruption Commissioner has championed a transformation of our corruption scores. We used to score less than 40%, less than 50% on the Control of Corruption Index. For example, if you take MCC and Transparency International, he has consistently scored over 70%. Does that mean that, oh, the report is wrong? I'm not challenging the report. I'm just saying, I'm speaking to our reality. Because now I believe they are comparing apples and oranges in some cases and using index. Again, if you had given me the courtesy of saying, oh, we will discuss this report, I will have taken a little bit, I will have, dug a little bit deeper into it and prepared particularly for that report. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But since you've brought it up, I'm saying that if you take things like generosity, that you just mentioned, example, social support. Last year, government paid direct cash transfer to over 900,000 homes, affecting about 5 million people. We're poor. Our economy, is not huge enough. We don't have enough resources. But in terms of social support to the poor, President Bio has deliberately, intentionally moved not insignificant resources, direct cash support through our social safety net programs to 900,000 poor households. And household sizes are measured by, if Oswe, they get up to 6 people. When 6 people, it's inside one pot. So that's an example of, again, what we're doing. And as I said, when we go to Cambia, when we speak to the ordinary citizens, they're not looking at, what does the happiness index say? They're asking, are we solving our basic problems here? And those problems, food, education, technology, employment, those are the things President Bio has made its priority. Those are the things we're delivering on. And you talk about freedom, for example, and civic engagement. You know, in the past year alone, we have continued to make progress on that. The last MCC scorecard that came out, when it looked at the question of expression, we scored very, very well, over 90% as a country, freedom of information. That's something that we're very proud of. We'll continue to build on that. We've said we want to expand that. Just last week, we launched the first public interest media fund with our development partners to begin to create opportunities for the media to, again, improve professionalism, have access to resources to do more public interest media and things like that. So, am I saying, oh, the report is wrong? No. I'm saying that the ways that may measure some of these things may not be contextually appropriate for what, for example, the average person. Because again, if you just take this notion of generosity, I'm going back to that. We are very generous people. We are. That's just the reality of who we are. So to say that, oh, Sierra Leone is not a generous country, or the people of Sierra Leone. And in fact, after the war, a lot of people came here and said they were shocked that people are still just smiling and laughing and happy. And that's something that we maintain. Yeah, as I said, just now we're in Cambia speaking to ordinary citizens, ask them, you know, they speak to you with such passion. I remember the youth leader was speaking from the panel, and she was speaking and crying at some point. And right after those tears, the women are gathered and they're dancing and singing at the same time. That's the Sierra Leonean spirit. The nuance of that is not captured in a headline report that says, oh, you're at the bottom of an index somewhere. We should pay attention to those things that the report says, obviously. We will continue to do what we need to do to make sure that we improve on any and all indexes, as we have done under the leadership of President Bio. But I think, again, I think we should be focused on how do we solve the basic problems of our society, and that's what we're doing.
Yep. So, Minister, before I go over to our journalist who has just spoken, good morning, Melvin. Our producer has just informed us that you were told that you were going to be discussing, you know, the all happiness reports in the text he sent you, which is copied in our group now, as I'm reading.
Your producer and I had a phone conversation and said he wants to talk about Civic Day. And I said specifically, it's not possible for me to do Wednesday because we're coming back either late at night or in the morning. He said, can you do Thursday? I said, yes. Yesterday we had a conversation. He said, they're expecting me today. I said, yes, we'll talk about Civic Day. That's it. This morning he called me on my way here. I said, I will be there. At no point did he tell me that we're going to talk about Happiness Day. As I've said, it's okay. I'm here. I can talk about happiness reports. I can talk about anything. That's my job, to speak for the government of Sierra Leone. I just believe that it's important as a courtesy to let me know in advance so I can prep and do you justice, and it doesn't feel like we're setting traps for each other.
Melvin, welcome. You've listened to the minister speak. Partly he doesn't seem to have, you know, holistically accepted, you know, the report, the World Happiness. Have you read it, by the way?
Of course.
You've read it.
I've gone through the report.
In all fairness, do you think the report's assessment on Sierra Leone's happiness rate is fair from a journalistic perspective?
Yeah, I think so, because the report is empirical. It's done by the world's leading university, Oxford, and the Wellbeing Center, and it's an interdisciplinary approach. So the benchmarks, they are carefully curated from an intellectual standpoint. And Sierra Leone is not the only country that is, unfortunately, we're in the bad light for being the most unhappy in Africa and second most unhappy in the world. But if you look at the report generally, countries like even the US, we saw them slipping back, even the UK, basing on certain benchmarks and indicators. So unfortunately, I think I should give some kudos to the minister for not in entirety discarding the report, but I can hang on his lips by saying it seems to see from what he's saying, some of the benchmarks cannot be applicable, for example, comparing Finland and Sierra Leone. To some extent, it's true. Some of these Nordic states are welfare states. Sierra Leone is not a welfare state. Apparently, what the report is pointing at is what policies and interventions are states making. And thus, that's the reason why the United Nations in 2012 declared March 20th as World Happiness Day. Because they believe that happiness should not be ignored. If we are talking about contemporary issues such as mental illness and stress and things like violence and insecurity, it's the belief of some of these proponents of the report that they've got bearing on how people feel about their comforts, about how they live, and what they themselves perceive as to what the institutions are doing and what the world is also doing. So I think it's a tripartite conversation. From a personal note, what are you doing to make yourself happy? From a state's perspective, what states, policies, institutions do exist for people to be happy? And if they're having these interventions, how real in terms of, I mean, this government is good at projecting facts and figures. So if these facts and figures are to be transformed into lives and livelihoods, how many people are giving that as a response to a questionnaire posed by the researchers? So I think, yes, the report, for us as Sierra Leoneans, I use the word us, because the report examines some critical notions. For example, when we talk about generosity, it's basically talking about how many people do have the guts to donate to charities. Some people feel as if, oh, I'll need to donate 200,000 to a charity, but the report is saying even $100 or $1 can make a difference in lives and livelihoods. And in Sierra Leone context, how many people are ready to part away with their loans? Because it's economically challenging. The report is one of the indicators talking about GDP. And if you look at basic research, we're having a GDP, I think we are the third least GDP globally. And this report is pointing out. So I think there are a lot of issues that can be, the governments, of course, I've always said, they have what is called the Munafa Fund. Those are all geared towards social service provision. But the report is saying those cannot be enough. And it's good that somebody is here to talk about them, though, whatever the case may be.
The minister's analysis of that, generosity is slightly different to yours.
Of course, that's what the report is saying, and the minister said he's not got time to...
People who are more or less, philanthropists.
Of course.
Alms giving to the poor.
Yeah,
the minister used some different yardstick, to analyze it just now.
I will not venture in what the minister is saying. He said he has not gone through the report, and I've gone through the report. So perhaps you need to go through the report and see what the context.
Fair, can I just say something on this? Thank you, Melvin. I think he's right. While we're here, again, I've been looking through the details of what the reports measures, and he's absolutely right. That on generosity, they are judging, have you donated, the question they ask is, have you donated money to a charity in the past month? This is why I say, if you use that to measure generosity in Sierra Leone, you don't understand Sierra Leone. Because our generosity is not that we give money to NGO. That's how the West works. That's how the West works. I bet you, we pack in what Canada do, you give money to a person, but not to charity. They're not going to capture that in that report. Number of people I pay school fees for. Number of family, you that work here, just because people see you on TV, that you meet on the streets. Number of people, they say, hey, me picking no well today, you get money. It's not captured in this report because the generosity is measured by, have you given money to charity? This is what I mean by some of these reports. We need to break them down to our own context. Are you suggesting that the people of Sierra Leone are not generous? Go to any village. They would maybe in their context, again, I lived in the West for many years, I studied in the West. Yes, every time you have to, because in fact they give money to charities so we can get tax returns back. I do the same because I have to file taxes. Huh? But here, when I give money every month from my salary, it's not about taxes, it's not about I tell somebody, it's not, and it's not just me. Even the person I give money to gives money back. My driver gives money. Huh? Everybody within the context. Another thing that I've just looked at what it says. I'm just pointing out again. I'm not challenging the report. So they are right. On the face value, if you ask the question, have you given money to a charity in the past month? If I ask you for the past one year, you give money to any NGO or charity? No, because that's not how we give money. Our charity is to our family, an extended family, our friends, and the people. The second thing that I want to call out is question 3, social support. I'll tell you what they asked. If you were in trouble, do you have relatives or friends you can count on to help you whenever you need them or not? I can tell you one thing I know about this country, 100% today, okay? I lived in East Africa. I was working there. I was shocked. It's a much richer country in East Africa. You go to the middle of the streets at night, whole families in the sleep that kit. Whole families, mama, papa, pikin. We are poor. It is very unlikely to see a whole family, mama, papa, granny, grandpa, pikin. No matter their shock, they will go knock on a door. Somebody will open for them and they will sleep there. Because in our context, your wealth, your power is not defined by what you hold, it's defined. But if you ask these questions in English or whichever language in the way that it is framed here, you're going to get a response that's going to tick Sierra Leone as unhappy, as greedy, as we know they share, as if I get problem, I not get nobody for go to. It's not true. Here, if you are unhappy, Melvin is my brother, okay? We are not super close. We don't go out and have drinks. But Melvin knows, God forbid, if he has a problem someday, he's in a police station. He knows he has Minister Bar's number. If he calls me, I have a moral duty, irrespective of anything, to pick up that phone. That's who we are as a people. That's all I'm defending here. I'm saying that the context of what is applied and the reality of our society are very different. I understand this because I've lived in many of these countries. I understand what they will measure as happiness. GDP is objective. I cannot argue with that. We're a poor country. That's objective. That's what I mean. That's an index you separate Sierra Leone from Norway, from Finland. I'm sorry, we cannot really compete. But on these other things, you cannot tell me generosity, social support, somebody to go to. My brother, it is not applicable to Sierra Leone.
Melvin, yes, you wanted to...
I think the minister is right from a personal point of note. But I think what the essence of the conversation is about state intervention. If you'll permit me, I'll give you a quote that it's from the World Happiness website also. Governments and international organizations should invest in conditions that support happiness by upholding human rights and incorporating well-being and environmental dimensions into policy frameworks, such as the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The effectiveness of governments in upholding peace and social order, as well as in the fields of taxation, legal institutions, and delivery of public services strongly correlates with the average life satisfaction. That is the bottom line. That is the context. So, of course, Salone people are we good. We like strangers. But what policies are there, for example, in countries like Bhutan, for people to be happy? What facilities are there for people to feel like they are happy? And of course, it examines so many other aspects of the basic state's intervention. I agree, it's not just from a state intervention perspective, but the bulk of the job, according to United Nations and thinkers across the world, the states must make that environment possible through economic, legal, human rights, freedoms, and other means that directly affects people's well-being to make them feel like I can answer your question that I'm okay. So it has got personal, I agree, but it's about how institutions intervene in making people feel. For example, let me just give you a look at how many entertainment complexes do we have from a national perspective? How many parks, parks do we have? If you want to say, I want to take my kids and my family out for now, is it possible? Yes, for some, but not for the ordinary person, because the ordinary person perhaps is challenged with electricity or water. So that's the context of the report. So it's quite, I think we can learn from this. This is not a government versus the people thing. This is about all of us, because the report captures some critical elements and emerging phenomena, even when it comes to governance. There is what is mentioned about anti-party parties, the rights of populism. So it's threatening to APC, it's threatening to SLPP, it's threatening to traditional establishments. So this is not just about Sierra Leone. Of course, we're on the bad lights, and for every Sierra Leonean, you should not be happy. But like you said, what individuals, but above all, what the states and other organizations are doing. For example, you mentioned charity. What's the state of, for example, the NGO law? What's the government's plan in assisting NGOs that are really doing things that are helping the poor, versus what individuals are also contributing to that? So it's a mixed bag of states versus personal and institutions.
Okay.
Can I respond? Again, Melvin is right. And there's a second point. I'm looking at here that we're both looking at.
Okay.
It says, indeed, now that you're quoting from the analysis of what it wants as a response. And that's what my initial response. We should focus on what we can do to address the problems that are the underlying. But I think it's important to know that the ranking is a product of variables, including questionnaires that they administered. And they have it here. And I'm saying if you ask those questions of Sierra Leoneans, you're going to get the wrong answer to measure whether we are generous and whether we have social support, whether we, feelings like positive affect, negative affect, how you feel the next day, control over your life and things like that. And also the way the questions around corruption are framed, okay? It's not, I want people to understand that it's not an objective fact of, Salone people are sad. That's what I'm saying. In the measures that they have used. On the other points that he make about, you mentioned NGO report, NGO laws. By the way, we have very progressive NGO laws in this country. If you look at what's happening in the rest of Africa, around tightening of the civic space, around making it difficult for NGOs to operate, that's not obtaining here. You mentioned populism and the rise of, for example, extremist groups around the world. We continue to be a progressive, tolerant country. I just came from Cambia, which is not a stronghold of the SLPP. Every single official in Cambia was there, holding us accountable and having one conversation. We're building on that civic culture. So I think we agree on the bigger points that he makes, and that this report should spur us to think about how are we addressing the underlying problems of our people. But what I want to caution against is the conclusion that Salone people they're the unhappiest people in the world, because the measures that have been used to judge are not taking into consideration the complexity of how we express social support, generosity, and other things that this report has considered.
Melvin, as a Sierra Leonean, if you were to assess the state of happiness in Sierra Leone, what indicators would you look at?
In terms of context, I think the context is clear. Talk about basic social services. Talk about energy. Talk about water. Talk about transportation. Talk about good health care. Talk about quality education, which this government has prided itself in. And in terms of data, in fact, the government has got glorious data on its intervention and education. But like you said, much more needs to be done. And for me, that's the focus. And as a Sierra Leonean, I think to a large extent, this report depicts the feelings of Sierra Leoneans. Of course, there will always be arguments about its methodologies, its sources of data, and all that. But it's just the same, almost the same sources of data that they use for the MCC. And it's ironical that when it comes to, because some of the sources, I mean, they're talking about World Bank, IMF, Brookings institutions, most of these institutions, these are the same sources of data for all things. But the irony there is, this report contradicts what the MCC and others are saying when it comes to perception of corruption. It's so ridiculous. And if I were to talk to the academics, I think some of these questions I will ask. Because if you're almost corroborating from almost the same sources, and now you're saying from your own commission report and questionnaire that on corruption perception. How comes this report contradicts Afrobarometer? How comes this report on corruption perception contradicts Transparency International? How comes it contradicts Millennium Challenge Corporation? So I think that can be a point to question the objectivity or subjectivity of the report itself. But in entirety, there is not complexity. The institutions that conducted this research, I mean, there is no way they can be half-baked or half-sad in this. I'm not saying they are not humans, or they don't have perhaps their ideological leanings, as we know, for it to happen in the West. But apparently, the fact is, the United Nations cannot fool itself. Oxford University cannot fool itself. Gallup cannot fool itself. They know what they are looking at. And if they are looking at certain countries retaining their position, and by the way, this is the uniqueness about the situation. This is the first time we are taking that position. We've not been in that position. There were other countries there before us. So what's the good thing there? It means if we make progress, we can be removed from that position because we were not there. We are only there because of what they've researched and from their feedback, that's why we're there. So it's not doom and gloom. If we are willing and ready as a nation to look at the things that make people unhappy and how we can solve them from a state, from an individual, from a community, from institutions, I think we can get there. But in reality, the fact now that not all that glisters is gold in Sierra Leone. Also because people dress fine, you know, they're sharp. People, I will tell you, many people are disgruntled. If you have one, just go and take the microphone and ask people, are you happy? Their response will not answer the question. They will show you. Why? Because there are so many things that I think the states and institutions and every one of us should do in making us happy. So we can do better, but unfortunately we are in this position.
While perhaps some would perhaps toe your line that indeed we need to look at the report in its entirety and, you know, snip one or two, you know, indicators and work on them locally to domesticate them. Someone from a scholastic, you know, scientific point of view would say, you know, there are heterogeneous differences in this report, as the minister has pointed. I'm not supporting him. I'm only saying that as an academic, when you conduct researches, you have to understand the local variables, as he has pointed out. And some of these variables do not seem to align with our local context.
And that's the uniqueness about the report. Because
how do you think this could change? How could Oxford University, for instance, Gallup, and all of these institutes collecting this data change or employ dynamics based on countries they are assessing for better results?
I think the uniqueness
incontestable results.
The academic uniqueness of is its linearity.
Okay.
Its linearity is one size fits all. It's the same question asked across the world.
And do you think that should be the case?
I agree, let me land. I agree that there could be contextual or societal indifferences, but the bottom line is it's not Gallup's or well-being centers' fault if we don't have a policy to make people happy, or if we don't have those institutions in place that should be able to gauge those things. So the fact there is, yes, you might say there is a diversity in unity, or the world is a global village, but every country is unique. But the bottom line is, this is not a question just only asked to Sierra Leone. It's asked to Guinea, Liberia. It's asked to Zimbabwe. It's asked across the board. Across the board. And mind you, it's not only asked to it's not asked to foreigners. It's asked, according to the report, to the citizens.
Who are these citizens, if I may ask?
Well, you need to go and read the reports. They've got a sampling. They've explained in detail their methodology. The questionnaire itself is there. It's up for grabs.
Well, were you asked in any case?
I don't expect to be asked. I don't expect to be asked because, I mean, we have how many millions Sierra Leoneans. So it's about the empirical nature. And yes, the empirical nature will be considered hinging on population size, I will agree. But population size cannot only be the excuse. Not because they don't ask all man means to say that cannot be reflective. Mind you, this is the world's leading academic institution.
I understand.
So they should not be thinking foolishly about their methodologies because they know they are going to be critics, they're going to be reviewers and all that. So I think that's the point.
Mr. Minister.
Having said that, the point that you make, I think that is so astute, is that when you do a big study of this nature, as you said, a single question across the board, you're going to miss nuances. I think the nuance that anybody listening to this conversation will pick out is clear. You cannot ask generosity question in Sierra Leone by if you don't give money to charity. That will not apply here. You will get a 0 score. Confirmed, you will get a 0 score. But it is not a predictor of the generosity level of a country. So in that case, for example, we don't go bottom of the table, right there. We will not be at the bottom if you just take that one variable. The second one I just mentioned is this idea of you get posting for call. Sierra Leoneans, everybody get posting for call Naya. All man get posting when they go to Naya. But I want to point out something that's in the report as well. Even the reports points out, again, it says we should interpret these relationships with caution. It suggests many reasons why we should. And it says one of them is another possible reason for a cautious interpretation of our results is that some of the data come from some respondents as the life evaluations and are thus possibly determined by some common factors. So even the report says, this is a big report, so plenty country, we have put in data here, as you mentioned, from secondary sources and some from interviews that are conducted using, because they want to judge across the board, they're going to ask Bhutan, which has a Ministry of Happiness, and a state-funded resource.
Exactly.
Brunei, all of these places I've been, yeah? And, you know, where they pay you, when you have a kid, they pay you. Okay? No, I'm telling you, in Sweden, where the policy of the states now is would they pay you for like born picking. You go to Japan, which is way higher. Nobody smiles, huh? They live long, but their lives are, you know, one kid, their population is extremely aging, and all that. So you have a different set of variables in terms of, for example, agitation, because they are older. Younger people are hungry, because one of the things they ask is whether you think you have complete control of your life and the options that are going to happen, that are happening to you. If you ask that to the average Sierra Leonean, even me, I wouldn't say I have complete control of my life. Huh? If you ask that question, again, in that direct way, in Sierra Leone, do you have complete control of your life? We don't. Because also, there's even a contextual basis here. If I say I have complete control of my life, it means I'm not giving credit to God. This whole thing does not account for those kinds of nuances in the response. Because ask any Saloma, you get control of your life, the fact our man's career is anything a God. So if you ask me, do you have complete control of it? That's another variable that I'm pointing out that is problematic when you come to discuss this particular variable. I go say, no, me, I don't get complete control of my life. For me, I wake in the morning, I pray to God, I go, how God bless me. Now that is going to be interpreted as you don't believe you have agency, because that is how it will be interpreted by from a Western lens. And because they are trying to do it across the board, they go. So again, there are many good things in this report that we should pay attention to, but I don't want us to leave the overwhelming conclusion that, oh, we Salone people led, that we get worst outcomes on this variable of happiness, because they've used the word that I think triggers so many people, happiness. We all want to be happy. But you know, in fact, even religious people will tell you that what we seek is joy. And there's a difference between joy and happiness. That joy is what overflows. Huh? It's at the baseline of who you are. Happiness is a function and reaction to happenings. Huh? So you see a lot of these kind of nuances that will not be captured in a global report that is pitching and pitting Sierra Leone against Norway and Brunei. It's difficult.
Now let's talk about the Civic Fest. We saw 2 days of that as well in December. So before we discuss what happened in Cambia just a few days ago, what was the impact, and just take us through again what the drive is for the civic engagement, which happened in December till now?
You know, one of the things that these reports look at is citizens feeling an affinity for their governments and feeling that they have, again, control, voice. We want to do that in multiple ways. One, you feel that at the local level, but you also want to feel like the people that are your government officials come back to you to report. You can hold them accountable. You can ask them questions. What we did at the Civic Festival last year in December was unprecedented. We organized 6 major town halls. We launched our civic policy. We organized a government-wide exhibition. Every single ministry was required to own a booth to show what they have accomplished. They had numbers, images, and everything. We invited all members of the 4th Estate to be there. We gave them booths. We had different blogging teams and everybody, school kids and all. And we spent 2 days asking the basic question: what has government done for you in the past year? What can you do to advance this goal, Salone Big Pass with all our civic goals? And then at the end, we also celebrated, because Sierra Leone is about celebration. We brought in culture, we had music, we had all the top artists in this country come perform, and they all did songs that was exalting the green, white, and blue, as our national anthem says, "High we exalt the realm of the free." Now, one of the big feedbacks we got from that is everybody said, "This is fantastic. It's first in the history of the country. We've never seen this. This is amazing. It's important. But you need to take this across the country." Now, the problem with these suggestions, sometimes they cost money. They require so much planning to be able to go across the country. But we've decided, thanks to support from the Ministry of Finance and our other partners, that this is something that is worth taking across the country. So instead of doing a festival in every district, we're doing what we're calling civic days. We'll do a micro version of what we did, but it will be leading up to taking us back to December. So we've started in Cambia, where for 2 days, day one was just focused on young people entirely. We just brought youth leaders. We brought the Minister of Communication, Technology and Innovation, the head of census Sierra Leone, myself. We had a debate in Creole, by the way, a school debate on Big Five, on these issues that we're talking about, on census, on constitutional review, on everything that government. We did on-the-spot debates with young people. And then we had a quiz competition. They won awards. Afterwards, we gave talks based reacting to what they had said, trying to fill the holes, giving them information, and having a question and answer. The second day was the major highlight. It was one of the most beautiful things I have seen in my public life in Sierra Leone, and I count that as probably the most amazing thing that I think I've been part of in government so far. We were outside the Cambia District Hall. We had over 600 participants. The chiefs and all the councillors were there. Every single corner of Cambia, they were represented. We had school kids, university kids. We had young people, civil society groups, journalists, people with disabilities, everybody. And we brought on the panel about 12 government officials. Chairman KKY was there, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, the Minister of Local Governments, the Minister of Energy, Deputy Minister of Agriculture, the head of the National Public Health Agency. We had the Assistant Commissioner for Border Control, John Amara of NRA. A galaxy of top government officials, all there. Single goal, I asked them a question. What is happening with various issues? Give updates to the people of Cambia. KKY started. He talked about, the images we saw recently were that poll before Donna Cambia. They wanted to know what's happening. They wanted justice. He spoke. He brought the contractor on the stage. People were crying. They said it's the first time that government has come to us and it's not to ask for our votes. First time in the history of that place that government officials have come to talk about delivery, have come to talk about what are we doing. And we bring in the contractor. We made a commitment. Now we're going to also be publishing the list of contractors. Because contractors are one of the most powerful people in our government, but I bet even my astute journalist friend here, they never know about them, you never see them. What's in the happen at the contractor? But now the minister, they don't accountable. The contractor is giving the money. He's doing a subpar job, we don't know. We brought the contractor out there with the Cambia people. They say, we'll not be sabi this man, we're glad we don't know now. Minister of Agriculture, they ask, how many tractors for Cambia District? How many projects have you done for Cambia District? It's there. The AG, talking about constitutional review. Where are we? What is tripartite? We don't understand all these tripartites. How many recommendations? How will this affect us? The AG provided. Border control. Cambia is a border town. They talked about, why are no sons and daughters of Cambia working for you at NRA at the border? We want to have our people there. This is how you get access to the right information. This is how we can help you stop smuggling. they had these kinds of, Minister of Local Government said, we have addressed all your local governance needs. All of the paramount chiefs are now fully seated in Cambia. When he was there 2 years ago for some other events, they only had, they have up to 3 or 4 vacancies. All have been sorted. He mentioned provided reports for the people of Cambia that was tangible. National Public Health Agency, he talked about Mpox. Cambia is one of the districts that is yet to record a case in this outbreak that we're dealing with. So he praised their public health response and talked about what they can do to keep Mpox out of Cambia, to help them. Census, it's coming up. President has declared it. It's now going to be sometime next year, inshallah. So what does that mean for Cambia? He mentioned that they are going to employ 30,000 people. The citizens of Cambia say, how many of those jobs are reserved for us in Cambia? I say all this to say, what we're trying to do is to break that long-held barrier between the governed and the government, between the people and their government. And one of the privileges of my life is to be able to deliver on that vision that President Biyo has, and to see the reaction. When the chiefs took their mics and they spoke with passion, these people prepared. They sat in the sun for 5 hours. I want to end. They said, no, we want to continue for talk. We don't get this opportunity. Yes, we don't deny it. We don't get the opportunity here to have all of you here in government, to have AYV carrying us live. Thank you, by the way, for your fantastic partnership and support. SLBC carrying them live. They felt like their issues were center stage for one day. And I tell you, people ask, oh, what do you think achieved by that? What is achieved is effective. It's the idea that I belong. It's the idea that I am part of this democracy. That these people think they can leave their work on Tuesday and come and sit here and answer my questions and tell me what they have done for me. And now we've formed some follow-ups. One of the things they told me, for example, is they don't have a functional fire force. My team is collating all the questions that we received for the ministers that were not there. We're going to put that forward. I already informed the Minister of Internal Affairs. I said, what's happening with Fire Force? Why don't you have a functional fire station? He explained in the group. He's called on the Minister of Finance. He said they are doing some additional procurements, and we're going to try to make sure that the next things that happen, Cambia will be part of it. Yeah, that's what governance is about.
Go around the country to replicate same. I think a question would be, how would you also be able to monitor and keep up with all the issues being raised in these different districts?
Great question. So first, we're going to definitely go across the country. Next will be Port Local. We're planning on doing this all across every single corner of this country. We want to go there. We want to bring top government officials, not just the ones we had there, but we're going to be rotating as well, based on the issues within that. The reason we brought border control is because Cambia is a border town. They wanted to talk about that. They want to talk about agriculture. We brought agriculture minister. We're going to do that. We send an advanced team. We conduct a pre-mortem. We try to understand what the issues are, what people want to talk about, and we have some standard issues. Census, public health, constitutional review, and tripartite. Those will be there because those are about the security of the country. We have a website where we're now transitioning, and we will hold the conversation for each district so that we can continue. We'll keep the media there, so you will see all the videos and everything. You go to that website, you'll see Cambia Civic Day, you'll see everything that's there. But also we want to have a list of all the issues that were raised and what is happening in terms of resolving those issues. Some of these issues are so petty. In Cambia, the school bus was packed for 6 months because you don't get too tired. Tire, you don't get. Picking in the sofa, too tired, you don't get. Now there are so many illustrious sons and daughters of Cambia. I'm sure one person will see that and say, no, we can solve that. So we want to be the platform as well for governance. Sometimes it doesn't require Ministry of Finance, budget. Sometimes even you, me, again, speaking of generosity, many Sierra Leoneans will pick that up. By the way, the Sierra Leonean that picks that up and does that, it will not be referred to as charity. It will not show up on that index as charity, but that's just who we are. So I think we'll do these kinds of things, lay the platform so that we can solve the problems we have to solve on our own. But Chairman KKY, for example, mentioned one of the cries that I heard from the people of Cambia. They said Cambia is the one district where they don't have a singular, fully tarred road between one chiefdom to the other, not one. And Chairman KKY said, well, government has secured the funding for the road, I think that's leading to Samo chiefdom, which is where he's from, and the people were applauding. They did not even know that this has happened and that this work is about to start, and that this next road is in the government budget. The funding is not secured yet, but it was in the budget for this year, and government is working on the funding. So this is what I think true governance at this level should be about. And by the way, this is not without its risk. When we said we're going to do these things, when I've done these town halls before, a lot of times people say, no open the mic, no give all man the question, because then we'll ask critical question that will embarrass government. And I say always, the value of it is beyond that initial fear of this embarrassment. If that's what the citizens feel, even if you don't give them the microphone, that embarrassment is going to show up in other ways. It's going to show up at the polls. It's going to show up in the relationship with the government. But when you create that platform, this morning I wrote on my Facebook, the thing that's blown my mind, this is a good country. Cambia is not an SLPP stronghold. Historically it was. It's not today. All the chiefs, all the councillors, the leaders, they were all there. They wanted to listen. They were respectful. Even when they were screaming at us, even when they were accusing us of things, but they did it with respect, with decorum. And afterwards, they came and stood by us and took pictures and thanked us, thanked the ministry, thanked the government for this, and said, please don't stop. Let's do this often. They challenged the other leaders. They said, don't wait for Ministry of Information to bring you here next time. Just come. We want to engage with you. This is the country that we have. The people love this country. They want to make it better, as Melvin says. This is what their work is about. That's why they know. I have no problem with critiques. I have no problem with sharp. I'm an activist. That's where I come from. I understand the value of that. It improves our democracy. We've just had a heated but constructive debates in this studio about different perspectives. It's held governments accountable. It's asked important, interesting questions. And I know those are true. This country is not perfect. Government is not perfect. There's so many problems we need to solve. But I think platforms like the Civic Day series are a step in the right direction to get the citizens to feel, to know that they matter, their voices matter, and for them to feel like somebody, they're not just screaming in their rooms, but that the government is listening and that the people of the country sees them and knows that they're there.
Melvin, what do you make of these civic engagements?
I think I should first say it's good. I believe in strong institutions, but I think strong men contribute to strong institutions. And the minister here is revolutionary, not because he's seated here. His ideas, for example, on bringing it down to the local language for people to understand is innovative, is quite radical. And I've always recommended that it will be one of his legacies if he can pilot another languages act for Sierra Leone, like in other places, because at the end of the day, even if you look at the Constitution, it just talks about English. In fact, it's the prerequisite for one to be a member of Parliament. So if we can have other languages act, I think it can further enhance, because it's happening in Ghana, it's happening in South Africa. You see the interspersed English and all these languages as if it's just, so we self can do them. And Mr. Minister, so Mr. Minister, I just to lend some credence to you argument on context of the report, the World Happiness Report. I think, yes, we always will leave room for what is called marginal error. And I think that's the basis of your argument here, marginal error in terms of context, in terms of culture and all that. But the bottom line, I think we all agree that we need to do more in enhancing happiness. So on the question, I mean, it's bringing the government closer to the people, and that's not new, we've been seeing it. And I think for me, what I'm more concerned about, because it's been ongoing, I hope the minister, at least when he's doing these national tours, he brings the president along with him to take questions from these people from this district, because at the end of the day, if it's about the minister, I think he's the face of government. You cannot take it away. He's got a team. It's a very solid team. So let the president have time. We know the president is very busy, but if he's going to Cambia, let people don't just see the president when he wants to go and perform, let's commission him. But let it be about, he's here to answer your questions, as that's the drive of the civic engagement. So that would be one of my recommendations. And of course, Mr. Minister, it's been a very long time the president has not taken questions from the local press. I hope when you sit in the cabinet, you at least suggest to him that, "Pai, don't say small, where you don't say, And the president, I think, like the minister is saying, he's doing his own bit, and he should be communicating. And a lot of unfinished businesses, which the minister can articulate very well, but when the president speaks, it adds more authenticity and authority and clarity to it. So I would love to suggest that, but ultimately, I think it's bringing government to the people. He mentioned contractors. I mean, if you look at audit reports, many of these contractors, on the other hand, when it comes to the public, say, "Oh, government is not paying us on time." But some of them, the quality of the job that they are delivering, they are just taking government and the people for granted. So it's good that we have an opportunity wherein people that are involved, that are making the difference, that are to answer the questions are also there. Because it's easy for you to blame the government officials or the appointed officials. But you have people that are auxiliaries to government, who we turn a blind eye to. For example, this contractor. So it's good he was there. And if he's not been paid, that was to be an opportunity for him to say, "Oh, well, the reason this work don't say, I got government not pay me." So it gives fairness in governance. And I think that is very, very important. But Mr. Minister, there is this very socio-political question that I have for you. You've explained a lot of the interventions, and the government is doing a lot. You mentioned that of the constitutional review. You mentioned that of the census, implementation of the agreements for national unity and all that. But Mr. Minister, looking at the time left, do you think we have enough time, for example, conducting the constitutional review, which at some point might lead down, might direct us to having a referendum, and it involves resources and time? And if you look at the issue of the census again, these are time and resource-bound activities. And if you look at the current state of the economy, Mr. Minister, do you think there is enough time and resources from your own end as the government to undertake some of these activities?
I like that he's conducting a town hall.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
But those are great questions. And by the way, that's why we brought the Attorney General, who's leading on those two issues. He came to Cambia. He was there, holding the mic, explaining exactly these issues you just talked about. The Minister of Local Government talked about redistricting and adding new districts in the southeast, explaining what the steps will be. So on the question of the constitutional review, the AG's point is simple. It is a relay that started with Pakaba. He passed the baton to Anes Koroma, who set up whole committees. And President Biyu has said, now that the baton is given to him, he does not want it to be a 4-person relay. He wants to take it across to the finish line. And he's absolutely committed to doing that. What does that mean? He's not starting from afresh. It's not a new process. He's taking all the recommendations from the Justice Kawan committee. And that's what the government is working on now, and seeing how we incorporate tripartite. Because, by the way, most of the recommendations in that white paper are similar to what's in the tripartite recommendations. And what do we need to do? There are creative ways to do the referendum, to ensure that, if we want to touch entrance clauses. But by the way, constitutional review, there are so many things in the Constitution that does not require a referendum.
Yeah, of course.
There are many things that just we can just take.
Clauses,
correct,
of course,
that we can take. So the AG is taking a very brilliant dual approach, saying the things we can do, let's do them now, and the things we need to wait for until we can mobilize the resources, but let's set the dates, let's set a target. But President Biyu is committed in terms of time to say this has started since Bakaba. At some point, we need to put an end to that. Census. Census is the kind of thing you cannot quantify in terms of value. You have to do it. You cannot, because if you don't do it, you're missing so many other indices. You need to make sure that you understand what your population size is, what the trends are, and all those other things for schools, for feeding, for everything. And so, yes, we might have delays because of technical and other issues in terms of President Biyu had declared that 2025 was census night in December. I understand how that's going to be postponed. We're going to explain that. We're working on the strategy. The ministry is going to lead on the public engagements with Statistics Sierra Leone to really break down for people and make sure there are different ways to do this. But this is something that is going to be done because it's needed to be done. So we need to prioritize. So I think these are great questions, and these are exactly the questions that ordinary people are asking when we go for these town halls. And I invite you, Melvin, to come with us when we're in Putloko next month. Next month, we're working with the Port Local authorities now to nail down the exact time when we'll be in Port Local. We'll bring again top government officials and we'll answer these questions, and we want to make sure that the whole government is accountable.
Okay, we do have a lot of messages on our Facebook page, and we'll take some time out to just take a few and get your responses. Osman Kumar is asking, Mr. Minister, do you plan to increase the number of chiefdoms in the South? Have you seen them?
Yes, a lot of them actually, trying to just sieve through so that we don't get to read insulting content on TV.
I took this one from Tia
It's not fast
Koloma.
month too.
She says, Minister Siba, how about the school bus in Kailaung Battery? Is there a challenge? The pupils have been working on Fit to Go for the past 6 months now.
Okay.
Have you seen any?
So Ben Jackson is saying Sierra Leone is unfortunately ranked as one of the most unhappiest nations in the world according to the World Happiness Report. Happiness is a distant dream for the people in this nation. The lack of positive emotions, love or gratitude. The youth are being destroyed by drugs, social connections are weak, the economic stability is non-existent. People live without freedom, security or support. It has been a long time since happiness was a reality for us. Even Lebanon is ranked above us, with their citizens living in joy and contentment in our own country.
Adamami Ture says, according to... Sorry. Can the minister explain briefly on the performance contract with ministers and MDs, please? That's from Adamami Ture. And Arnold Seaman says, when have we ever heard a government that answers questions of the people more than this current one? Osman Kamara, the reflective thought leaders must employ is the reflective slogan. If it's you in slums, ghettos, blind with children, no better health and a good place to lay your head, clean water, etc. If it's you in such situations. However, when rhetorical statements become the nature of politics rather than confrontation of reality, if it's you.
So Siba, how about the school bus in Kailaung? Battery is there.
It's already asked.
You forget that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ben Jackson, Sierra Leone is unfortunately ranked as one of the most unhappiest nations in the world according to the World Happiness Report.
He's read that one.
Did you?
Yes, I've read that one, yes.
Okay, I think these are a few of the questions or comments.
See, I'm
So
paying
all
attention.
Revolving on the other, yes.
Yes. I attended a very good school, the Albert Academy. So there we pay attention.
School
we pay attention.
I had PO has taken over anyways. So I had PO has taken over anyways.
PO?
Yeah.
Do you have PO?
Yeah.
I don't even understand who selects a white blazer. White blazer. We'll wait for them. Let it come. Anyway, I think there's a question about whether there will be new chiefdoms in the South. The Minister of Local Government was very clear that there will be redistricting happening in the Southeast and that various districts will be affected. He referred to Bo, Kenema, I think. He referred to Bo, Kenema, Pujeong will be affected. Some of Kailaung will be affected in terms of what their current constitution is. So, but he did say that this is being deliberated, it will be tabled in cabinet, and then they will bring it forward. There will be a declaration, it will be following the law, and it will be very transparent. What is happening there, what I said was unprecedented there is, this is now, as somebody just said, the governance, we're not just sitting behind closed doors and making these decisions. We're coming up, we're saying this is the process, this is the step, this is what is going to happen, and people know. And that's something that we take pride in, yeah? I've listened to the point about school bus in Kailaung. I will pass that on to my colleagues. I'll raise it up immediately when I leave here in our cabinet forum. and ask about that. It seems that there's a common thread now on school buses. As I've said, we had the same issue in Cambia, so maybe we need to think about what the overall solution is for that. So the ministries that are responsible for that, I will engage them. Performance contract, the Chief Minister, the President asked us all to sign a performance contract. Chief Minister is overseeing that. I understand that that report is going to be made public about how we have performed across various metrics. They're almost done with the reports. They were asking us for some clarifications that's going to come out. Now, some ministries are also doing performance contracts with their MDAs that are within their sector. I have already in the final stages now with all the information and civic education agencies. So we have SLBC, IMC, NASED, government printer, all of the ones that are within us, rights to access information. They are filling out as well their performance contract, because I want to also give account to the public and to hold them accountable as well publicly, just as we're being held accountable. I'm hoping that we'll do the same kinds of things as well for other sectors. So I think those were the major questions, and somebody was saying, when have we had a government that answers questions? I thank them for that. I think we must do better, we must do more, and I think we must create multiple platforms for citizens' engagement. By the way, Melvin made an excellent point about having the president himself engage with the media directly. As you know, last year, we hosted a historic town hall where we opened up again and asked citizens and gave them a microphone and for citizens to ask questions. Definitely that's in our plan for this year. Our ambition is to do that not just in Freetown, but we're hoping that maybe this year's town hall will be held not in Freetown with His Excellency, but these are things obviously we have to work with the front office of His Excellency to figure out. But we are committed as a ministry, based on the vision that he has set for us, that we will create this culture of civic engagement and openness, and we'll build on it.
What are some of the differences you noticed with your engagement, I mean, from those in Freetown and Cambia District where you're coming from?
That's a great question. I think that in Freetown, maybe we take it for granted because we're here and it's happening every week and we're there. And so the sense of urgency is not the same. I think when you go to a place like Cambia, where, again, it's one of the districts that, frankly, is not getting all the attention in the world, I think for them, it was 2 full days, and each day they were there from pape to pape. Like, people were there. I said, at some point at 2, I said, this is our first month, so we have to close now, stop. They said, no, we want to continue to talk. It's this notion that this is such an important platform for them, and they have so much to share. The number of people that came up as well with papers, they just had to say, okay, me not get a chance to ask question, but yeah, me own paper, dear Mr. Minister, let them answer this question for me, make them work on this thing for me. These are the issues that have been felt. So there was this sense of like true, I think, desire, understanding of the urgency of and the power of civic engagement and the centrality of their lives, because they are not in the capital city, but that at these civic days, Cambia takes center stage.
So, Minister, while we perhaps could, in a way, gentleman's agreement, disregard some of the indicators used in the World Happiness Report, is the government concerned in any way?
Yes,
so
we are.
Open to all these things?
No, we are concerned. I mean, look, as I said, there are some objective factors in that report. GDP, for example, we need to increase that. We need to ensure that, the basic pie in this country is expanded. We need to increase government spending. Government spending is tied to taxation. He mentioned taxation. We had NRA with us there. Look, a lot of people in Sierra Leone don't pay taxes, and people try to avoid paying taxes. The problem is the sense of patriotism. When you go to buy even water, I see this one has the NRA stamp. It has it here. So many people don't ask those basic questions because we have not brought them along. Ask for GST receipts. When you ask for GST receipts, you're helping the governments to be able to pay for that school bus. Just by asking for it doesn't cost you anything. You've already paid. But if you don't ask for the GST receipts, that seller is just going to keep that money. Steals from you, the citizen. Because if the government doesn't have enough resources, they cannot pay salaries, they cannot add teachers, they cannot buy, construct new roads. So I think there's a lot that is wrong with the way the social contract works, because frankly, successive governments have not broken down the relationship of that social contract, and people have not seen for a long time the relationship between the inputs that they are making and the outputs in their lives. We need to make that very visible. And that's why civic days and these kinds of engagements are important, because we break it down. They see, and then they see us. We're not these people that are living up in space. You're there. They can see you. You're a minister. Oh, but you're just like them. You know, I like to say to people, I don't wake up in the morning thinking, oh, I had to go do evil today. No, I'm trying to solve basic problems and help move things forward. If you have that sense that that's what your government people are trying to do, then you feel a lot easier to say, you know what, let me do my own parts to help to move things forward. So those are absolutely critical. And yes, even on those indexes, we will not be at the top. I don't think we'll be bottom, but we will not be at the top. So we need to continue to improve. Corruption, he mentioned the contradiction between the secondary source and what the report is saying, because most of the sources suggest that we have continued to climb. Not insignificantly, by the way. So are we concerned? Yes. If there's any suggestion that we're sleeping, which I don't think it is, and that we're backsliding, which I don't think it is, but we need to up our game. President Bio has said one of his signature legacy issues he wants to be his fight against corruption. So we need to continue to do that in terms of governance and making sure that we're responsive to the people. So there is a lot to be concerned about. And as I said, I wanted to be careful not to dismiss the reports. It is not at all saying, oh, I lied, they lied. Nope, this is not me. I will never do that. These are credible institutions. I'm just saying within the context, there are some nuances that will be missed if you compare and ask the same question in Salone as you ask in Norway. They will not be the same.
You wanted to?
Okay. On the civic engagements again, we talked about some of the challenges that were brought forward through this civic engagement in Cambia District, but what are some of the potential areas for growth within that district?
Well, to be honest with you, I think Cambia needs a lot of support. I feel like they converted me when we went there. I fell in love with the people of Cambia, the generosity of their spirits, the passion that they exhibited, and the decorum that I saw in that engagement. Every sector there. One of the bright spots of Cambia is education. And the student that participated in the debates, it was impromptu questions. They really shone a light on the power of investing in education. They were outstanding by any and all measures. They really just lit a bright light in that room for all of us. So we want to see a continued investment, especially in girls' education. All the top performers, the best debater, the best squeezer were females as well. But, on agriculture, Cambia is one of the rice bowls of our country. They want to see additional investment. They want to see the good road networks that is built in that country. On energy, we brought, as I said, the contractor forward who was committed that in about 2 to 3 months, he said, if government pays, this was the caveat, he said, if government pays, I think you mentioned government paying contractors, he said, if government pays in about 2 to 3 months, they'll be able to turn the lights on. So Cambia, there's been a lot of work done there now. But again, one of the things that came out as well is, I think about the 16 transformers that have been installed, 6 of them were destroyed by ordinary citizens. People didn't go pull the transformer or forget the lights. So I said to the people of Cambia too, that's the point of civic engagement, so challenge them. That's not government, that's you. You here, you know everybody in this place. You can hold yourselves accountable. You can protect this investment because these are for you. It was your tax money that was used to pay for this, for something that you want and can enjoy, but somebody's coming to steal that. That's the point of the social connection that we're talking about in the social contract. So I think that's an area that they want to see, but I think, inshallah, they're very close to seeing big progress in that particular area. Cambia needs infrastructure, good roads, again, as we've seen. So I think there's a lot of areas where what we want to continue to do is to make sure, again, our civic engagement is not the last and final time, that we need to follow up and do that they will continue to have a voice in governance.
I'm letting you go now, Mr. Minister, but before I do, something I've observed in Sierra Leone, the pattern of advocacy has changed. It has gravitated from that commonsensical kind of, or intellectual, if you like, kind of advocacy to obstinacy and insults being rained on.
You're enjoying your Facebook page, eh?
No, not really.
I'm just saying the Facebook comments.
I haven't even watched it. Yes. But it's something I've observed, the manner in which people advocate these days or talk to state functionaries. At times it could come off as very obstinate and rude, you know. But there's something that's very important that I think is missing. Before now, there was something called civic education. There are modules in schools, you understand, that teach you how to be a good citizen. You spoke about patriotism earlier, you know. I want to believe that the burden on you as a government will be quite enormous if only you will be championing this. Don't you think it should be transferred into schools? Let's start having these subjects
but we have
again in school.
NACID has developed a new civic curriculum. It's been rolled out into school. We just did assess the impact of these curricula that's now been in the school system. We need to continue to train our teachers. The new civic strategy takes that into consideration, but we need to do that from two perspectives. The school is within the formal, but we need to reinforce that in the non-formal. So these are what we're doing as well. Like where we engage young people, the theme of it all is Salone Big Pass We All, but we really break down what that means. What do you mean when you say Salone Big Pass We All, right? We start with the pledge, we end with the national anthem, we break that down as well. What does it mean to cultivate a sense of civic pride? Now we're celebrating our 64th anniversary in a month as a country. We're working now with and other leaders across government to think about what's this year. For the first time, we're going to come up with a theme. What's the theme for this year's National Day, Independence Day celebrations? And how are we going to make sure that this is reinforced across the country? Because the sense of civic pride, the sense of patriotism, is not something that is cultivated as a one-off. It has to be in the national consciousness throughout. And we need to continue to build on that.
Melvin, I'll pick your brain lastly on this. You're a journalist. You've practiced for a while now, you know. I like the manner in which, you know, you articulate things. You're being meticulous, not rude, but robust, although you could come off as very rough at times, you know. But how do we, you know, we know, if you like, funnel through, if you like, between journalists who are actually deliberate to making actual impacts, and from those who are quite sensational, you know, yellow journalistic in nature, and very, you know, unprofessional?
I think it boils to depth, passion, and above all, we cannot be judges in our own cause because we are there serving an audience. They make up what we are. Of course, we have our moral compasses and we have what we believe. So for me, I've always taken pride in being centrist, non-partisan, and critical. And of course, somebody is saying on the Facebook, oh, it seems as if the minister's presence has overshadowed. And that brings me to mind what you know, not to all time where young man and can sit down and talk on government issue for time like a boss. What's end? People can make more informed judgment. That goes to professionalism when we have a conversation rather than when we have an argument. And I think from the onset, that's what the ministers, the tone is set. And I owe it to him to take a cue that he was not arguing. He was having a conversation, and I joined the conversation. So you'd be expecting, maybe a minister for banter. I mean, unfortunately, I will surprise you, but I will ask critical question. For example, the minister is breaking the news. Now, let me just spot on that, Mr. Minister, and seek some clarification quickly. Because you said
I've been told I'm going to leave now.
Mr. Minister, please, before you leave, please. Mr. Minister, the government of Sierra Leone announced December 1st as census night. And in your conversation in passing, did you say it's going to be postponed?
Yes.
If it's going to be postponed, will that not have an impact on whatever dates that ECSL will be setting for the next general elections?
Not necessarily.
By virtue of the ongoing conversation on, well, where does the ECSL draw its data for the conduct of an election?
Yeah,
so that goes back to the heart of the question, time, resources. So
correct.
If there's going to be a postponement, will not affect the dates for the next election?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
That's the answer to the question.
Thank you.
But we'll provide more details on that. This is the danger of like just not giving context and spending time on one particular issue. So the statistician in general is a fantastic man. He's doing a great job. He was with us in Cambia, Andrew Johnny. He broke it down for the people. He explained what needs to happen. He explained what we're going to do. And as I said, that we're working really closely with them. We're going to have a lot of public engagements, including with you, Melvin, and your colleagues, to really make sure that people understand what the implications are to answer this critical, really brilliant question that you just asked about what are the implications for other things,
Yeah.
whether it's elections and all of that, and does that mean that therefore the elections will be conducted using that data,
Old
different
or new
data?
data, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of those are questions that will be answered very, very soon.
Thank you.
And as we wrap this up, I have to read a comment, the last comment on Facebook from Ngoroji. He or she says, I don't know who's the owner of the account anyways.
No,
Melvin Mansare is supposed to replace the sacked youth envoy. He is so proactive. I leave it at that.
Are you advocating in his
No,
behalf?
I'm reading it.
All right.
Your Excellency.
See how you're smiling.
I don't know. I'm content with being a journalist. We still serve the states in different capacities.
Is that a no?
How can I-
actually read the message for the minister, by the way, not you.
the minister is
Not
seated in the
you, okay.
cabinet. That's the minister, you can take it.
It is noted. It is noted.
I want to thank you very much indeed, Mr. Siba. It's always a pleasure having you. And of course, our dear friend, Melvin, who's also a critical analyst. Thank you so much indeed for lending your intellect and time to our program this morning. We truly appreciate it.